Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, war gamers and YouTubers, Boom Shakaboxer here. Now let's get started with this episode of Kraken Unleashed. In our last episode, we demonstrated the Strike Bogue variant, a high risk and high reward playstyle that emphasizes damage over time and maximizing kill potential. Today, we're going all in on the stock Bogue loadout, which hands down, as of version 5.11, is the best and most consistent Bogue loadout. If you want to be able to do decent damage while maintaining adequate air superiority on a consistent game-to-game basis, this is your go-to loadout. One of the biggest considerations of low-tier CVs is hangar capacity. You simply do not have the volume of planes necessary to force bad engagements, and this is where the beauty of the 1-1 stock loadout comes into play. Again, we're going to be consistently looking for opportunities, but the big difference here is that with a fighter, you now have the opportunity of creating air superiority. Now, what exactly is air superiority? Air superiority is the situation in which a team has established absolute aerial advantage over a particular sector of the map, which translates to free fly zones. In practice, this means you have total control in determining and dictating engagement terms. Referring back to the last episode on Strike Bogue, with no fighters, I was opportunistic, primarily choosing targets that were out of position, isolated, and or did not have fighter coverage. With fighter options on the stock Bogue, if I can beat out the enemy team's fighters, I am then no longer opportunistic, but rather encroaching, capable of forcing engagements on my terms. Early game, and we already have a decent look. We managed to strafe a bomber and a fighter, and followed that up with a good kill on the Svetlana, as well as forcing a smoke on the enemy DD. One of the best things about replays, however, is mistakes, and I can't commentate on this replay without at least pointing out potential mistakes to try to avoid. As soon as the enemy Izyaslav realized he wasn't capping in the smoke, that was his signal to GTFO. As my bombers are coming back to resupply, let's take a look at a few of the reads we can make. In terms of the surface battle, our main force is pushing in the A and B direction with a small task force fighting defensively away from C flag. Conversely, the enemy team is sending their big guns to C flag and a couple of individuals to A flag. The shorter the distance my torpedo bombers have to travel from my ship to an enemy ship, the more effective I can be as a CV. Therefore, two things to always remember: bomb the closest enemy you can, and shadow your own fleet. One final thing to consider at this moment: notice how throughout this entire time I have only encountered the Hosho air groups. Bingo! This is the heartbeat, and look what we have here. Our first engagement against an enemy strike group, and our fighter is unfortunately out of position. But recalling last episode, we already saw how exceptional the AA rating on the Bogue is against the Zuiho. Now, let's see how it fares against the Strike Bogue. The biggest threat is the torpedo bomber, so my primary goal is to decrease my profile and deny potential broadside. If I get hit by dive, however, that's susceptible damage, but I have to limit the amount of torque I eat before my fighter can make it back.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Of the 9 bombers shot down, 6 or 7 were simply from the Bogues AA. By the time it took the enemy to attempt his first strike against me, I initiated 2 closer strikes and sank 2 enemy ships. So hopefully, this will bring some awareness to the opportunity cost associated with an impractical practice. Don't ever try to strike a Bogue, period. And as a second point, this should reinforce why a Bogue would never need the air superiority 2 fighter 1 dive bomber loadout, as that same ship-based AA can snipe down enemy fighters for you before they even know what hit them. Following up on that opportunity cost, you can now see what happens when a flank breaks open, prompted by bad decision making, which has a compounding effect as the battle flows from the early game to mid game. Being completely out of position from any support, the 2 enemy CVs must now pool their resources to sink my team's Clemson and eventually the Minikaze. This pressure enables me to have freedom of air coverage over the rest of the map, which I will capitalize on shortly. Going back several minutes, had the Bogue provided support for the Iziaslav and Hosho and attempted to strike my team's DDs earlier when they were still at B flag, the 2 enemy CVs probably wouldn't be in this predicament as they are in now.
Group 3, standing by for instructions, over.
When striking DDs, one of the most important things to establish is reads and execution based on those reads. It's very hard to strike DDs in open water, but when they limit their freedom of movement by getting too close to islands, that's when you know you have a great opportunity, and I fortunately capitalized on 2 hits.
Enemy destroyer blown up.
Our team has taken the lead.
While we're resupplying our next strike, let's take a look at another typical mistake that new players can make.
Approaching target.
Pay attention to our BBs at A flag. While they definitely help in winning the flag, their subsequent decision making to go behind the islands will effectively take themselves, both their HP and firepower, out of the fight for a considerable part of the mid game. And while in this replay there are no repercussions in doing so, it happens often in general and it is usually punishable by the enemy team. Therefore, specifically for New Dawn, instead of going behind the island, for a battleship, it is more efficient to take a little bit more risk and cut south of the island by going down the 4 and 5 lines instead. By doing so, you can help the A team secure A flag in the early game and be in position to support B flag immediately once the mid game begins.
Group 3, airborne.
My next strike is up, and again, I'm going to focus on the closest available target, which in this case is the Congo.
Group 2, returning. Group 3, we're under attack. Group 3, approaching target. Group 3, returning to ship.
Enemy battleship sunk.
Notice my aggressive positioning here. Aside from the Minikaze, I'm actually the next closest frontliner. Several considerations here. All the enemy destroyers and cruisers have been eliminated, but the best part is that all the enemies are spotted. Information is the most important resource of which makes decision making possible. As the game progresses, the amount of information you can obtain also increases, and the better the information you have, the better the choices you can make. In this current situation, for the air fight, my team has established air superiority and I have complete liberty in dictating aerial engagements. In the surface fight, all fast enemy ships have been eliminated, and what's left are slow battleships. This enables me to aggressively push with mountains as cover and increase my strike potential. And as a smart player, I make reads, follow my intuition, and execute the plan.
Awaiting instructions. Group 3, we're under attack. Group 2, standing by for instructions. Over. Group 3, engaging enemy. Group 3, returning. Group 2, taking fire.
Did you notice something? The enemy Koenig is suffering flood damage. Earlier, I had noticed the Minikaze landing torpedo hits and forcing the repair, which puts me in prime position to strike and cause another flood. Without the dive bombers from the strike loadout Bogue, you have to pay special attention to allied fire support from cruisers and torpedo strikes from destroyers to capitalize on damage over time opportunities.
Group 2, we're under attack.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
Group 3, ready for takeoff. Group 2, taking fire. Group 3, airborne.
But one of the best things about replays is learning from mistakes, and it wouldn't be fair to everyone else if I didn't point out this embarrassing mistake I make at this final juncture of the game. As is becoming quite habitual of me in late game situations, I hesitate, not knowing whether the Hosho was going to turn in or out, and ended up causing my torpedo bombers to fly in circles.
Group 3, engaging enemy.
And better yet, when I finally see the angle I want, I ended up dropping too close. Bloop, 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 splash. One hit out of 6. Unbelievable. This concludes this replay. Feel free to ask any questions, and if you enjoyed this kind of content, leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Thanks for watching, thanks for learning. Until next time, this is Boom Shaka Boxer, signing out.